Beauty standards are different worldwide, but none is as diverse and cultural as Africa. Currently, the African continent has 54 nations and inhabits numerous ethnical groups. Thus, the continent has set examples of norms that make graceful aesthetics. Most of these standards are close to people's hearts and are regarded as representations of their collective memory, privilege, or even resistance to the colonizing forces. Some even have historical contexts in which they have been practiced for centuries, such as body modification and adornments, whereas some represent the conflict between the traditional culture and the New World culture. Scholars have discussed how the process of globalization impacted these traditions, and the youth find themselves trying to maintain their ancestral culture and embrace modernity. Contrary to the Western model of beauty, the beauty standards in Africa are more profound. They tell the stories of power, unity, and sometimes the fight. These traditions point to the fact that the world is not as simple and less homogeneous as it would seem. Far in the southern part of Ethiopia, amongst the Mursi and Suri people, there is an incredible cultural practice: lip plates. These are not mere accessories, they are representations of culture, identity, and social order. It may seem quite bizarre that women insert clay or wooden plates into their lower lips, but it has deep meaning. To these tribes, lip plates are considered attractive and privileged and prepare women for marriage. The size of the plate easily tells of the position of the woman, the size of her family, and how influential they are. It is a tradition performed on young girls for the purpose of transitioning them into women. Apart from aesthetics, anthropologists think that this tradition may have begun hundreds of years ago to avoid slave traders, since these modifications made people less attractive to their oppressors. The process starts with a small cut in the lower lip, and then increases step by step to accommodate large plates. Though it is still normal within these communities, people from the outside world develop curiosity and tend to discuss it. To the Mursi and Suri, on the other hand, it represents their identity, their tradition, and their ability to resist assimilation by other cultures. First, this sensually appealing ornament even gives the impression of an extended neck, thus a sign of beauty, nobility, and wealth in their society. These heavy rings are more than fashion accessories, they are also emblems of status, for the number of rings worn determines the position of a woman in that society. What most people do not know is that the rings do not cause the neck to be longer. Rather, they flatten the collarbones and ribs to pull the neck in for a longer look. These rings are first put on by the women as soon as they are young, and other rings are then worn to complete the look of the hand. This has always been a traditional method, though the changing culture, or rather the Industrial Revolution, has slowly led to its reduced use. But what if the rings cease to be worn? What is more, the neck does not remain stretched. Without these rings, the muscles holding up the neck are often compromised, and the villager must hunch over until the muscles have the strength to hold up the neck again. This incredible tradition demonstrates that beauty standards can redesign not only the vision, but the body as well. Tattooing is one of the most ancient traditions which has a deep cultural meaning in the contemporary world, and it is illustrated by the scarification of the Dinka of South Sudan and the Karo people of Ethiopia. To the Dinka, scarification is a sign of the passage, the celebration of a change in status from childhood to adulthood. The boys are marked on their foreheads, as a sign of strength and courage, and they do not cry out when the marking, which is painful, is made. Karo women, particularly those from the Peruvian Andes, consider beautiful lines drawn on their stomachs and breasts, which be symbols of fertility. It could be deeply ritualized and rationally calculated, and the marks do not lie but narrate bravery, self-identity, and fraternity. Every line of the artwork and any curve is individual and collective memory. Though this is an ancient practice, it has been replaced by modernization and globalization. Due partly to the influence of Western practices and given more so the rising issues concerning the health implications of the practice, this generation in particular is open to asking itself why this practice continues. However, the majority of elders attempt to maintain the practice in their opinion. It is an important part of their ethnic heritage. Such traditions bring into focus the fact that there is so much variation around the world on what beauty and identity mean. In the Cameroon tribe, particularly the Matakam, teeth filing doesn't solely involve a cosmetic change of the dentition, but a cultural modification in the community. Both sexes, women and men, sharpen their teeth into needles, and their smiles become fascinating and inhuman. This cultural practice that is particularly carried out when a young girl is preparing to be a woman has in the past been associated with beauty, maturity, and spiritual cover. Some ancients thought that by having pointed teeth, one would not be able to be possessed by evil spirits. That was not a mere concern of how to come up with a pleasing exterior, but how to thrive in a society that cursed and prayed simultaneously. From the standpoint of the Matacom people, changing the body in such a manner meant courage and adherence to the tribal norm. The process, however, is not for the faint-hearted. It does not involve the use of any modern machinery or even anesthetic. There is a long-standing tradition in many African countries where people are struggling for lighter skin, and it is associated with the colonial era's cultural aesthetic values. The Europeans had lighter skin tones, and when they colonized Africa, they decided to consider that skin tone, which is lighter, as being better, and represents success and beauty. This perception continues to this present generation, and has led to people spending so many billions of money on skin lightening products. It is estimated that up to 77% of women in some African countries use skin lightening products. But then again, these products are accompanied by some very shocking health risks to human beings. Some of them have banned chemicals like hydroquinone and mercury that, when used, lead to skin thinning, kidney failure, and even cancer. However, these dangers have not waned because there is a high demand for the products, which is caused by active promotion of fair skin. Understanding this shortcoming, different African governments such as that of Ghana and Rwanda have actually prohibited the use of products that contain hydroquinone. As much as these bans are laudable, the main challenge is enforcement because the banned products are still being imported into the region's markets. This therefore calls for intensified efforts in campaigns against what is considered acceptable beauty to encourage people to accept their bodies the way they are. Unlike many other Arab countries where thin and slender body shape is proudly embraced, in Mauritania there are curves and fullness that are valued. Different from the thin-skinned Western goddaughters, females in Mauritania culture are required to be fat, as this symbolizes prosperity, fertility, and beauty. This approach dates back to its origin from what was considered the appropriate size of the female body during the Industrial Revolution, when the size meant health and affluence, as any family with the capacity to feed a female beyond the enhanced size was considered to be wealthy. Towards this mot, some women are taken to fat farms where they feed on calorie-rich diets of milk, couscous, and butter in quantities that would shock any normal person. Though this tradition may resemble a beauty camp for overweight people, its results are potentially very dangerous for health, starting with obesity and including diabetes, heart disease, etc. The authorities have banned forcible feeding, however. Such practices are still used in some villages. The world of body positivity is vast and diverse, and for the women of Mauritania, curves represent their identity and status. Through a portrayal of beauty standards in different African countries, people can exemplify what extent cultural values are intertwined. If traditions like scarification or lip plates are not about beauty, then what are they used for? The answer is rather simple. Traditions symbolize roots as well as power. But they are changing gradually due to globalization and so-called modernization, tempting all these ancient social values. Of course, some adapt to new changes, while many of them are already on the verge of becoming obsolete due to changes in young generations' taste.